The royal family was dismayed yesterday by Prince Andrew taking centre stage at his father Philip's memorial service. The shamed royal insisted on accompanying the Queen from Windsor Castle to the Thanksgiving event at Westminster Abbey. But to the shock of many in the congregation, he then escorted his mother all the way to her front row position in full view of the live broadcast cameras. It had been expected that the Dean of Westminster would take the Queen to her seat, with Andrew behind. The Prince has been forced to step back from public life over his association with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Your cookie settings are preventing this third-party content from displaying. If you'd like to view this content, please adjust your cookie settings. To find out more about how we use cookies, please see our cookie guide. Earlier this month he paid millions of pounds to Virginia Giuffre, who had accused him of rape. He has consistently denied her allegations. It can be revealed that senior royals had reluctantly accepted Andrew, 62, would travel with the Queen to London because they live so close to each other. But they had hoped common sense would prevail, and that Andrew would not seek to play a prominent role in his first public appearance since he struck the out-of-court settlement with Epstein victim Mrs. Giuffre, 38. A family source said that senior royals, including Prince Charles and the Duke of Cambridge, were dismayed by events, and that Andrew's decision to put himself front and centre of the service had caused consternation. It would be a great shame if the service was overshadowed by all of this. There is a strong sense of regret that this has happened, they said. Yesterday's service of Thanksgiving saw around 1,800 people gather at Westminster Abbey, including many representatives of the hundreds of charities that Prince Philip championed, including the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. Camera icon. The royal family was dismayed yesterday by Prince Andrew taking centre stage at his father Philip's memorial service. Frank Augustine, AP. Camera icon. The shamed royal insisted on accompanying the Queen from Windsor Castle to the Thanksgiving event at Westminster Abbey. Richard Pohol, AP. It was in marked contrast with his funeral last year, when COVID restrictions meant only 30 people could attend and the Queen was forced to sit alone and masked as she mourned. The monarch, 95, had been determined to make her appearance at yesterday's service in honor of the man she described as her strength and stay. But her recent ill health and increasing frailty meant that it was confirmed by Buckingham Palace only yesterday morning. It was the Queen's first major official engagement outside one of her homes for nearly 6 months. She last appeared to open the Welsh Senedd in Cardiff on October 14. The Queen listened intently yesterday as the Dean of Windsor paid tribute to Philip's intellect, work ethic, sense of humour, and devotion to his family. The Right Reverend David Connor pointed out that the Duke could be abrupt, and suggested that at times he could forget just how intimidating he could be. Philip's granddaughter Princess Beatrice was seen to give a small chuckle, as the Dean remarked, he could be somewhat sharp in pricking what he thought to be bubbles of pomposity or sycophancy. But all eyes were on Andrew sitting in the front row with the other senior family members. It is understood that the issue of his presence was being kicked about by senior royals and their households at the end of last week. Camera icon. To the shock of many in the congregation, Andrew escorted his mother all the way to her front row position in full view of the live broadcast cameras. Unknown are supplied. Camera icon. It had been expected that the Dean of Westminster would take the Queen to her seat, with Andrew behind. Richard Pohol, AP. As there was such a strong family element to the service, there was an understanding and acceptance that he would attend, as he had a right to both mourn and publicly celebrate his father. But it seems that the Prince also pushed forward with his plan to accompany her as she left Windsor by car. Andrew lives only minutes from the Queen at Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park. He departed shortly after 10 a.m. yesterday in a Range Rover with his mother, both sitting on the back seat together, for the 22-mile drive to Buckingham Palace. There they switched vehicles, travelling on to Westminster in the monarch's Bentley limousine. A guard of honour saluted as the Queen drove past the main west door, where she would normally enter, in favour of Poets' Yard. Staff parked the car as close as possible in order to minimize the distance she needed to walk. She exited leaning heavily on her now familiar walking stick, holding onto her son's arm as they moved towards her seat in the Abbey. Camera icon Britain's Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Andrew, centre right, arrive for a service of thanksgiving for the life of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, at Westminster Abbey in London, Tuesday, March 29, 2022. Richard Pohol, AP. They separated only at the end of the aisle, with Andrew giving a last glance at his mother as she turned right. He took his place in a front row seat, as befitting one of Philip's 4 children, but on the other side of the aisle from the Prince of Wales and Princess Anne, who was with her husband Sir Tim Lawrence. Normally Andrew, who is still 9th in line to the throne, would have taken precedence over his sister. Sources said his decision to take such a central role in the event by walking in with his mother on his arm has caused consternation, although nobody was blaming the Queen herself for his actions. Some feel it was inappropriate, said one. The issue of the Duke's role had been aired and battered around late last week. It was accepted, perhaps reluctantly, that he would be accompanying her to the Abbey from Windsor by car. It is fair to say there have been raised eyebrows at him being so front and center. Asked whether any members of the family knew Andrew would help his mother down the aisle, one insider said, there was no suggestion beforehand that he would be supporting her in that way. It hadn't been discussed specifically, but it was hoped that common sense would intervene, and Andrew would not accompany her to the front of the Abbey. Clearly it didn't. There is dismay. I think people accept that this doesn't look good. Camera icon Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Andrew. Dan Kitwood. Another source revealed, no one was given a say. Andrew will have insisted and no one would have found out until it was too late. The Prince of Wales will be despairing at the decision. And I don't think the Duke of Cambridge will be too happy either. But that's Andrew all over. Andrew also walked the Queen back out of the building after the service, as other senior royals left by the front entrance. Among those attending were Charles, the Duchess of Cornwall, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, the Countess of Wessex, the Princess Royal, Princess Beatrice, and Princess Eugenie. Prince George and Princess Charlotte were also present in honor of their great-grandfather, the first time they have attended a major public church service. Your cookie settings are preventing this third-party content from displaying. If you'd like to view this content, please adjust your cookie settings. To find out more about how we use cookies, please see our cookie guide. The dignified Queen, who looked fragile and slightly watery-eyed, but kept her composure throughout, was heavily involved in arrangements for the service, which featured elements Philip planned for his own funeral, but were forbidden due to pandemic restrictions. A rousing rendition of the popular hymn Guide Me, O Thou Great Redeemer, also known as Bread of Heaven, was one of his particular requests, but congregational singing was banned at the time of his. Special arrangements were put in place for the Queen's comfort, with the service limited to 40 minutes, and the monarch sitting in one of the familiar Canada chairs, but with an additional cushion. Afterwards the Queen drove with Andrew back to Windsor, where she hosted a reception for members of her late husband's German family, who had flown over for the occasion. She was expected to pop in briefly. Another reception was held in London for almost 30 foreign royals who had flown over to pay tribute to the Duke. Daily Mail.